This could be the massive game changer that Ukraine and Ukraine allies have been looking for all this time. Sweden and Ukraine have finally agreed on a deal to transfer some Gripen airframes to Ukraine with the ability to buy even more. Hey there, Georgie here with Ukraine Matters. I am back from Ukraine and right now I'm on my way in Poland. So let's start talking about what this purchase and transfer of Gripens means for the war at large. Discussion to purchase or send in Gripens to Ukraine have been going on for multiple years now. And there has always been excuses why it was not happening at that time. But I think finally Sweden has run out of excuses. Obviously, I'm telling about this in sort of a playful way, but actually not really, because my position is very clear. We should send a lot more help to Ukraine as fast as we can so Ukraine can win Russia over. But right now, we're getting the news that Ukraine is getting the 16 new Gripen airframes. And those are really nice planes. They are relatively easy to repair. They can land on a lot of different surfaces. They can land on just regular roads, on less than perfect runways. And in general, they are very nice planes to have, and they can use all of the modern NATO equipment. And this is where it gets the most beneficial, because now we've heard that not only the Gripen airframes being transferred to Ukraine, but also the Meteor missiles finally are going to make their way to Ukraine. The F-16s that Ukraine has gotten so far, which is there about 40 of them. A lot of them are still in the pipeline, Belgium, that promised to send quite a lot of F-16s, and my hopes are that at some point we will actually see them being deployed to Ukraine. But nevertheless, with now Gripens coming to Ukraine, and especially Meteor missiles, this could really shift the balance on the battlefield. One of the major advantages that Russia still has on the front lines is the CABs, so-called, which is the old Soviet aviation bombs that have been reworked to have this gliding kit attached to them, where the Russian planes are not able to fly over Ukraine anymore, but they're able to sort of go up, like go into the sky, fly up, and when you're going up, you launch this aviation bomb that deploys the wings and then glides for tens of kilometers to strike the targets. And they have perfected them quite successfully to strike almost like 100 plus kilometers. There are some that can fly further, but usually those that fly further, they're also the lighter versions, which doesn't mean that they're useless, but still. And with Meteor now in place, this opens up possibilities. Now, some people have stated, well, you know, some of these further aviation bombs, they can be launched over 200 kilometers. And I mean, technically, you're right. But I think here is very important to know how Gripens and Meteor missiles will work. So Ukraine has also received this radar plane that is going to fly around and is going to scan the skies for the Russian aircraft that could be in the zone. Gripen planes that could be somewhere else can fly without a turned-on radar. So essentially, Russians could see this radar plane of Ukraine, but they will not see Gripen, or maybe they will just, you know, notice it at the last moment. But at some point, Gripen that will receive the data from that plane that is detecting Russian aircraft and sends that information to Gripen, Gripen then deploys the Meteor missile. And Meteor missile is pretty cool. So what it does, it's not just that it's a missile that can fly 200 kilometers, it's also a very sophisticated and very deadly missile. When that missile flies, it doesn't just actively deploy its own radar, it just flies without turning it on. When it gets closer to the target that was designated, only then it turns off or turns on its active radar. So if Russians would be sitting in a cockpit, they would just suddenly like, oh my God, I got a missile lock. And it would be already, you know, just couple of seconds away from missile hitting him. And this is where we get really interesting. A lot of the missiles, they actually just get launched by using their inertia, and usually they would have some kind of small adjustment engines attached to them. Whereas Meteor has actually almost, you can say, another engine in itself that allows the Meteor to engage that engine when it gets closer to target to prevent the target just evading that missile by dipping a little bit lower to the ground. So it's a very deadly missile. It has a very high hit ratio, and Russians potentially will not even see it coming, because if you would look from the Russian perspective, they would not see Gripens if it doesn't have the radar on, and if they didn't have their own plane that can detect Gripens nearby, and they would also not see the missile, only maybe at the last moment when it's already too late. So most likely what we will see is that at some point Russian planes are going to start falling from the skies, and that's going to be great. And then we get to the second part of this deal, which is that Ukraine is also going to be able to purchase additional planes themselves. The talks are that it could be anywhere from 20 to 100 extra planes, which is a pretty big deal. Even 20 is already a lot, because if you put them together with the F-16s that are, as I said, around 40 right now working in Ukraine, and then 16 that's going to be donated, and if there's going to be additional 20, then we're getting into that territory where Ukraine will have the ability to use a lot of these sophisticated NATO weapons to actually target Russians and make them really, really hurt. And Russians are already hurting. This is where we get to the third point, why this is such a big game changer. Now, game changer as a weapon has been sort of a thrown around here and there, so I don't really like that. But there is another aspect in which I do like it, when it's being used. A game changer in a sense that it helps Ukraine sort of win harder. At this moment, Ukraine is doing a technological race. They are doing their middle strike drones successfully. They are developing their campaign to strike Russian logistics. We're going to talk about it once I'm back. And Ukrainians on the front lines that I'm just visited and talked to, they are very optimistic. And basically, the only question that they're asking me is, how can we win harder? How can we make sure that Russia just doesn't find the solution for our middle strike drones, and then we get back into this in the middle ground situation? How we can get even stronger from now on. And this summer is going to be devastating for Russians. The campaign is going to get larger and larger in their logistics. And then suddenly at the end of the year or at the start of the next year, Gripens are hitting the floor. And now Russians are suffering also not just small air with the drones, but also in the big air. And that's where Ukraine is going to have possibilities. A lot of the news articles have been stating that, Ukraine hasn't been really winning the fight from Russians. Yes, they're counterattacking. And again, there was a successful counterattack, and we're going to talk about it as soon as I am back to the studio. But the good news keep on pouring, yet Ukraine doesn't really, kick Russians out yet. And I think the key word here is yet. So that's why I do think that Gripens coming after the Ukrainian successful campaign of drones with their Meteor missiles, and potentially, Ukrainian officials have been hinting that there are some additional niceties that are going to be packing on these planes. So I'm not saying that the Meteors are going to be the only thing that there will be, but whatever it is, it's really bad news for Russia. So let's hope for the best. Let's stay tuned. Keep supporting Ukraine. I love you. Slava Ukraini. And I will see you next time.